Hello, and today we're going to be looking at a scenario where civilization starts over. Let's get into it. This is season 2, episode 10 of the series, and we can get right into it. So today, we're going to be starting over down here in Greece, as the Yugoslavians, with some Greek troops going ahead and going from Yugoslavia to Athens, the Yugoslavians are going to be able to push back as they recapture this major city. And also another uprising happens over here, and this major city breaks away, and so does this entire thing here, this little exclave, which is pretty bad for Greece. Meanwhile, these people are pushing back, or pushing into Greece, and are getting close to taking the capital, which is pretty sure is like one of the most influential capitals in the world. I think it might even be the most populated. Yeah. What is the most populated city? Maybe Mesopotamia's capital? Probably the Red Team's capital. It's probably the most populated city in the world. So, taking that and Athens occupying it is a very hard thing to do. And the Gold Team will also be making their first naval invasion in history over into this little area here, as they go ahead and invade over here, taking this major city, and they start to beat Greece a lot, and Greece is starting to lose pretty badly on the front lines. Yeah. Let's go up here now, where we are going to be seeing the Yellow Team do something, as the Yellow Team will be declaring war on Slovenia. As the Yellow Team recaptures their old capital region, and eventually the Yellow Team is just going to push back, eventually going ahead and taking their territories. The Yellow Team just absolutely destroys Yugoslavia in this war. Yugoslavia, they had no, there's no option for them. Nothing could be done because they're just gone. They're immediately off the map, and in the peace treaty, well, the Yellow Team is just going to fully annex them, and the Yellow Team becomes even bigger. That's something. And, well, let's go to the alliance layer real quick, as a new country is going to be joining the Diamond Alliance and oppose to the Yellow Team. And that country is this country. That's pretty big. Yeah, I would say so myself. Yeah. Going down to Africa, if I can get the layer on. Yeah. As we can see that more of these nations will be working on exploring over into North Africa. Eventually, mainly just trying to go as far as they can before it just gets to the impossible to explore level, which they aren't quite at yet, but they're kind of close to there. Yeah. If we go up here, we can see that the people over here will be going ahead and exploring down the Moroccan coastline, eventually reaching over to here. Yeah. Going over to the English area, we can see that the English will be fully colonizing the entirety of Scotland. Which, why does Scotland have so many islands? I don't know, but, well, I gotta color every single one of these islands in individually, like this. One more click. And also, Ireland will also be fully colonized. And that's also pretty big, as the British Isles are fully united under one nation. And now the British are going to continue to explore, as they will be discovering these islands and these islands. And they will eventually discover Iceland, and well, they fully discover the island. Not like that though, but like this. Yeah. And what more of the world is becoming discovered. When we go up to here, we can see that the Swedish will be greatly expanding up north, hoping to get as much territory as they can. They will be expanding a lot. Eventually, they will meet the river here. Let me just show you what they get. And this is all the land that Sweden claims. As Sweden has conquered all of modern Sweden, and most of, I think, all of modern Norway, and they're starting to work up going ahead and colonizing Finland. But they do discover that Iceland has been discovered by Britain. But the Swedish will be claiming these two new islands that the British have discovered, which the British don't really like that, per se. That's understand the... What happened here again? Oh, this is the normal font. Yeah, let's just go back here. As we can see, the Yugoslavians will be pushing back a lot, Eventually, we'll be able to connect their exclaves up, eventually greatly pushing back and getting close, very close, to beating the red team in this war. Beating the red team in this war would be catastrophic for the red team, as they are the most powerful country, and they have, I think, the second most influence. But let's go over here. As we can see, that the Ukrainian and Central Asian explorers will be continuing to explore a lot as they explore, eventually discovering this entire lake. And a new country is actually going to be established here by some Central Asian settlers. As this new country is going to be situated on this side of the lake, and eventually they will be just fully colonizing the entirety of this lake, or just claiming it. And now we have a new country over here in this area, and they also will be expanding a lot. This is basically a colony of Central Asian settlers. Basically, a bunch of Central Asian and Ukrainian people came over here and settled this land. So basically, that's how all of them were over here. Many people call this the long journey, is what they call it. But let's go to trade routes now. As you can see, Mesopotamia makes another route from the capital, going up here and making it through these cities. As the route eventually goes ahead and passes through the capital of Central Asia, and starts the journey all the way through, trying to connect to this country. Eventually, the routes will be here, and this country will be pushing in order to connect, and eventually, after many years, they connect. Yeah. And also the route wants to connect to Ukraine. As they work to connect Ukraine's route over here, eventually the route is finished over here, and well, this major city immediately becomes one of the most prosperous cities in human history, or in this area, as it's a pretty major routes thing. But countries are planning to build a new route between this major city over here in Mesopotamia and this major city over here in Ukraine. The route is planning to go something like this. But some countries believe that this route should go like this. And they're basically just planning to build this new route, but nobody can agree. And that's going to cause some tensions, especially with this country where the route goes through. But this country will stop going through the route, but they're just going to stop building, as they have to agree whether the route should go like this or like this. Yeah. Basically a new route thing. And Mesopotamia has just made their people mad, as the Mesopotamians invade over into this country. This is the first invasion by Mesopotamia in the whole history, as they take their capital in the midst of the war. Eventually will be capturing this major city. This country is actually pretty weak compared to its neighbors, especially since it doesn't have any trade route going through it, so that's a really limiting factor for them. But they do lose their capital. Eventually, this country will be invading into them as well, and so will this country. And we can look at the division of this country. This is the treaty. Yep, and the country's divided. This thing gets a coastline, and if you can't really see it, the border between this country and this country looks something like this. Yeah. So basically, this thing is divided, and the colors are very similar, let's say. But Cyprus, seeing this, is scared. Makes sense. They are completely surrounded by Mesopotamians. There's Mesopotamian allies to the north, your east, and your south. And to your west, you have another strong alliance. And also to your north, you have the strongest country in the world. But so you're kind of isolated. So Cyprus is going to join the Star Alliance for protection. Makes sense. But also, with Cyprus joining the Star Alliance, that indirectly causes Athenian troops to start moving into Cyprus to start a naval landing over here. Yeah. And Athens troops and Cyprionese troops will be making a landing over here in this area of Anatolia, as they quickly go ahead and capture a pretty large area for them. Let's do some invasion plans real quick. Like, the red team's invasion plan is the first, knock out the gold team, get them out, and make it a stable front line here and make sure the navies can't interact. Eventually, they're going to keep a stable front line with the Yugoslavians and eventually put it all in Athens after they make a naval blockade against the gold team. And when they defeat Athens, they're going to go ahead and fully focus on Yugoslavia with the naval blockade still in effect. Eventually, after defeating them, they can defeat Cyprus. Or do that alongside with Athens. That's basically the invasion plan of Greece. But the invasion plan of the Star Alliance, the plan is to use Cyprus to go ahead and invade into the Anatolian areas as all these nations or forces will be pushing down as the Yugoslavs push, and so does the gold team in Athens. Eventually, all these forces will be able to crush the Greeks, and eventually they will just be forced to surrender. Or at least that's what their plans are. Who knows if they could go wrong, though? There's a lot that can go wrong with invasion plans, especially in this time. Going over to India, we can see that the Indians continue to explore greatly, eventually making their way all the way over here, which is a pretty far feat, but they do eventually, after a few years, discover the entire Indian peninsula and even Sri Lanka, which is pretty impressive for them, since they're kind of small right now, as the Indian forces will also be mainly focusing on these rivers. They do get stopped by the giant Tibetan mountains over here. Yeah, going over here, we can see that the Indians will be mainly having a focus up on the Indus River as they go ahead and split out, but are eventually stopped by these giant mountains. Or at least partially stopped. They can't really go into much mountains in these ancient times. Like Tibet, I think it looks something like this. No, I think it looks more like something like that, I think. Maybe not some of these southern areas, but this is basically what India explores. Yeah. In India, because of this, will be going ahead and greatly expanding as they go ahead and claim a giant chunk of land over here. Eventually, they will reach the end over here, or of this part of the peninsula, and will be claiming the entirety of the peninsula with help from the Mesopotamians, as the Mesopotamians are giving heavy funding to India in order to maybe explore out. And with this trade route thingy going on, the Mesopotamians will continue building their trade route, as they are really going up on the rankings, as they are probably pretty close to number 1, but the trade route goes out here, ready to continue exploring. As more Indians will be going ahead and eventually discovering basically the whole Bangladeshi area thing, and their explorations will look something like this, as they're getting really close to discovering China, but nobody knows that yet. In Mesopotamia, with a giant explorationist force from India and the rest of their alliance, will be going ahead and exploring Persia. And also India will be joining the Circle Alliance. It's pretty large. I would watch out if I were you, UAE. You're kind of against Mesopotamia. So that's something. And the Mesopotamians with their giant forces will be going ahead and just completely destroying and absolutely just exploring all this area. Eventually, they will be able to discover all this area. And they're stopped by Tibet in mountains, yeah. But they do get a bit into these mountainy-ish regions. I think it looks something like this. As I feel like the borders of Tibet look something like. Yeah. Basically just stopping, like China. And without the Tibetan Mountains, China and the rest of Europe would have been discovered by now. Or at least would have discovered each other. Going down to Vietnam, we see a new group of humans pop up. This group is pretty small, and eventually it's going to form a nation. It's getting pretty hard to find unique colors here, but this nation in Vietnam is, well, made. And this thing, being curious, is going to quickly go ahead and start mass exploring all the regions around them, so they explore up into Thailand, mainly having an emphasis on the coastline. But because this is a giant jungle, they can't really explore too far, but they are able to get into some of the densely-ish areas, I think. But, well, this is basically what they know. Eventually, this group is going to go ahead and go down here And eventually we'll be discovering, hey, this exists, this peninsula thingy here. Yeah, that's cool. But these people will be going ahead and continuing to explore all the way here. Eventually, they'll explore land will look something like this. They will also continue to expand over here. As with the exploring comes the expanding, and I didn't get those two words confused. Yeah. But they will be going up, eventually working to attempt to discover as much as they can. Yeah. Meanwhile, over here in India, Chinese and Indian forces are working to discover places as China discovers both Taiwan and this island thingy here. As Chinese forces will be having a main emphasis down south in the Southeast Asian areas. They became powerful enough to be able to explore into these areas. But, well, after they get to about this point in the jungles of Vietnam, they start to go this direction, mainly trying to maybe find other civilizations, as people have reported that they have found other humans here. And eventually, the Indians, people from India, have reported the same thing, and they go and eventually meet each other. India and China are connected up. China is known about, the world knows about China, and the entire world, except Vietnam, and the unknown, maybe out here, or anywhere else that's in gray, is, well, fully known about. Everybody knows about everybody now, and these Indian groups will be going ahead and doing this. Yeah. And well, eventually, groups will be working to go ahead and explore down over here into these areas. Eventually, they will go ahead, with the help from Vietnam, they will basically discover each other. Yeah. As well, Vietnam, people know it exists. And if we go to the trade routes layer, we can see that the Indians are going to continue building their trade route, mainly focusing and having an emphasis on the new Southeast Asia. And China is going to make an agreement with India, not knowing about Mesopotamia, to help build this trade route. As it goes through some of those cities, and eventually starts to go about here and around through some many major cities, and eventually they have the project to connect it through here. But first, they might want to make a route going around, as this is pretty dense jungle to have a trade route in, or maybe just through these rivers. They want to use the river sources to help building this trade route, so that's what they're going to try to do. And people, having a rough image of the world, having the world look something like this over in this region, we'll be working in theorizing that China might be here. And the Chinese also might theorize that, hey, there might be some people up here, as they go ahead and start rapidly exploring alongside with this new nation over here, with a lot of help, and whoop, they connect. And whoop, all that's really needed to explore in this part of Asia here is just Tibet and all these mountains. Well, that's going to happen over time, as eventually these groups will start mass exploring over into these regions, eventually just leaving out the Tibetan region, as you can't really do much there. China is finally going to discover Korea, and well, that's pretty large, as they go ahead and go ahead. That doesn't make sense. But they do go ahead and explore the whole Korean peninsula, and even discover this island. They still haven't discovered Japan though. And this is roughly the known world. It's getting pretty large, I can say. But the Vietnamese will be continuing to explore as they explore all the way through this peninsula. Eventually Vietnam has to expand itself as they go ahead and mainly have an emphasis on the peninsula. Because you want to be surrounded by water. And they do climb the entire thing, but they don't know anything past it, so they're just going to stay roughly here. Yeah. India, being India, is going, not being India, just wanting to expand. It's going to go ahead and expand over into these regions here, which is what they call the quote-unquote New World, is what they call it. Yeah. So basically all this is just discovered by now, but this is a process that takes many, many years to do, and a lot of stuff has happened over here within that time. Yeah. Going back to the front lines, we can see that the Greeks' plan is failing, as they can't stop the impeding forces, as Athens gets really close to taking the capital of Greece, and the gold team pushes back. But Yugoslavia does have some failures, so they do lose this major city, as the red team has just completely built a new plan to attempt to take out as much as possible and keep the history. And well, then a new country joins this war. A country that has had history with one of these two powers, a country that is wanting revenge for the collapse of their empire a long time ago. They declare war on both the rebellion and the Italians. Well, and who makes sense for that? The Yellow Team. The Yellow Team sends their invasion forces over into Yugoslavia and their invasion forces into Italy for the second time in history, hoping to reconquer old lands. And basically, this is launched, and the Cypriot invasion continues. As it goes ahead and takes this area, eventually we'll be pushing back. Yeah. Going up north, we can see unification of two countries, as these two countries unite into one. Yep, despite these two didn't even really want to separate, because, well, they were just forced by the Green Team's treaty. Yeah. Speaking of not the Green Team, let's go down here now. As we can see, the UAE continue to expand over here into this peninsula, as they will be going ahead and taking more of this region. And well, this is pretty large, as they go ahead and have a pretty large focus over here. And well, a new group of settlers will be popping up here in Oman. No, not Oman, or I can just say Yemen. Yeah, Yemen. What? That's not supposed to happen. But what is happening is Yemen. Yep, Yemen is here. It's a pretty large event. We have a Yemenese nation in this thing now. And this thing is going to quickly go ahead and expand into many of these Arabian regions. And their extent, after a little bit of time, will be looking something like this. And going down over here into Africa, the Horn of Africa, we can see that a new group of settlers pops up. Nope, not settlers. New group of humans pops up. And this group is situated in the Horn of Africa. And their span looks like this, as they have a pretty large focus over here, and they will eventually establish a country. As New Somalia forms, and well, this is the Republic of New Somalia, as this is, well, if I can call this pixel, a definitely thing. Yep, a thing. It's a nation over here in Africa, and this thing will quickly go ahead and explore these rivers a lot, and eventually will be connecting with Egypt. But they do eventually discover this. And this thing is going to be pretty small for now, but it does go ahead and expand this river, becoming a lot larger. As they go ahead and have a main emphasis on the Horn of Africa, or just what they've explored for now. Yeah, they don't really know, as the Horn of Africa. They just know it as the peninsula, as these Somalians. Yeah, like this. And well, this is because they can't call it the Horn of Africa, as only this part of Northern Africa here is known about, so they can't call it the Horn of Africa. But this thing is going to go ahead and work with a lot of help from other nations, going ahead and expanding into all this territory. Pretty common theme here, a lot of countries just sort of getting help from others, and expanding a whole bunch. It's pretty cool, theme thing happening for this episode. Yeah? Going over to Central Asia, we can see the Central Asians continue to expand as they have a large focus on these two rivers here, hoping to also try out and get as much water access as they can. So their main focus is over on these coastal regions, and eventually will be making a direct border with Mesopotamia, and even claiming this river, which Mesopotamians claim as their own. Yeah, people from Mesopotamia don't really like that. But Mesopotamia is getting a lot of backlash from this war, and areas of Mesopotamia are starting to have revolution, such as Azerbaijan. These areas here, the new areas they just conquered, and a lot of the desert areas are starting to rebel against, and even parts over here in Iran. Going over back to Central Asia, we can see the Central Asians greatly expand over here as they go ahead and fully surround the lake. And their extent looks something like this. Yeah. And also, let's go back here, as this country will be greatly expanding, eventually maybe taking a break from expansion and starting exploration, or continuing exploration, as they have a main emphasis up north, which makes sense, but they do go ahead and claim more of this river. Yeah. Eventually, this group will go ahead and explore this territory before being forced to stop, as this is a lot. Yeah. Eventually, after a little while, we can see that trade routes continue, as, well, this thing will be continuing down, as China, knowing this, is going to build more trade routes up north. Eventually, the trade route will be fully built, and the trade route is almost done between Asia, and almost all of Asia and Europe is connected, basically. Let's do a little trade route update now. The trade route currently goes up here through Germany, through small major cities of the yellow team, eventually going up to the Baltics, and looks something like this. Eventually the trade route here will be going up over to Russia's capital, and the trade route currently looks like this. Yeah. As they go ahead and, well, take this, and eventually it goes up to the French capital, and, well, this is roughly what trade routes of Europe look like. And a new route as well connects this country up here. And so this is pretty important, as many countries want trade routes. Oh, why am I here? I don't know, but going over here, we can see that another trade route is here, connecting up the Swedish over here to the rest of the world. And this is trade routes, and that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed today's scenario where civilization started over. See you in the next episode where we will continue this. Maybe more things will happen. And bye!